Hello, friends, and welcome to this week's, I guess, little informational video. So today we are going to be talking all about macros and how I calculated each of your guys' macros and how you can calculate them for yourself in the future when you have, just more experience with tracking them and you want to be able to set them for yourself without having to hire a coach to do it. So it is very simple, and it does, vary based on each person, and it does become easier as you have more experience with, working with different clients and seeing, how different people's bodies respond to different macro ranges. So I broke it down into 5 steps here. So I want to make sure that it comes across very clear and simple for you guys, because I know when I started, I had no idea how people calculated their macros or how you would be able to figure that out. So the first thing that you have to do is figure out your maintenance calories. So neglecting any thoughts you have about I want to build muscle or lose fat or whatever. Ignore all of those things. First, we just need to focus on how many calories you need to burn, or how many calories you do burn every single day to neither gain weight nor lose weight. Those are your maintenance calories, and having this piece of information is like a little golden nugget that you can use in so many different ways. So this is really important to figure out, and the best way to figure it out is to simply track what you eat on a day-to-day basis without making any changes to your diet. So obviously, most of you guys do already track your macros, or you've started tracking macros in the challenge. So those macros that I've given you have been for a fat loss goal for the most part, and so those are going to be technically lower than your regular maintenance calories. So if you were to just track what you ate in MyFitnessPal every single day and not have any changes, and you were to see for 2 weeks your body weight didn't really change at all, those would be your maintenance calories, the amount of calories that you need to eat to neither lose weight nor gain weight. And this number is going to change as your body changes. So if you think about if I think about in my journey 3 years ago, I had way less muscle than I do now. So my maintenance calories 3 years ago were way lower than they are now, because muscle burns more calories at rest. And that's one of the reasons why we like to build muscle, because it helps build our metabolism and build our maintenance level of calories. So that is the first thing that you have to figure out. And there are some very general calculations that are just multiply your body weight by 14 to 17, depending on how active you are. If you're more active, multiply it by 17. If you're less active, multiply it by 14. But I think that those are just way too broad to really be applied to a majority of people. So you can try it and see, if it seems similar to what you think your maintenance calories should be. But most females, for the majority of you guys are females, fall in between 1,800 to 2,400 as their maintenance level of calories. And people think that it's way lower than that when it's not. But if you have been dieting for a long time and trying to keep your calories really low, then that maintenance level can bring itself down by the fact that you're just not feeding yourself enough. And it's not permanent damage at all. You can always get back up if you start to slowly feed your body more, but some people do have a lower maintenance because they have been eating such few calories for such a long period of time that's what your body's energy output is going to adjust to, whatever you continually feed it. So that's why you sometimes hit a plateau in a fat loss phase, because you've cut your calories by 300 below your maintenance, which is awesome for the beginning, and then your body's energy output just adjusts to that. So now you're not going to tap into any fat stores because you don't have that energy deficit. Does that make sense? So that's the first step. Step 1, figure out your maintenance calories. A pretty long-winded answer there. Then step 2 is to figure out your goal calories. So most people have a goal, whether it be losing fat or gaining muscle, and the calories required for either of those goals is going to depend on what your maintenance level calories are. So if your maintenance level calories are 2,000, that's pretty standard for a female, full-grown woman. Let's say that's their average. Then if they want to lose fat, they are going to need to create an energy deficit of about 500 calories per day, which I don't recommend just jumping from 2,000 to 1,500 because that energy deficit can come from their workouts as well and their increased energy expenditure. So that would be the next thing, is to figure out your goal calories. So if you are looking at a fat loss phase, my recommendation is to go to 200 to 300 calories below your maintenance level as a starting point. So that would be 1,700 to 1,800 calories for this female that is burning 2,000 calories a day at maintenance. And then if they were looking to enter a muscle building phase, or a bulk or a lean bulk, whatever you want to call it, if you're looking to put on muscle, which is when you are not going to be losing fat, you are going to be gaining mostly muscle, but also a little bit of fat, because you have to do that when you're feeding yourself more than your maintenance level of calories. That would be a smaller increase, because if you think about like when you're losing fat, you're trying to lose like 1 pound of body fat per week. That's pretty sustainable. But if you are trying to do a lean gain and gain muscle, I don't recommend trying to aim for gaining 1 pound of body fat per week, because you're not going to be able to put on that much muscle in a week. You can't put on a pound of muscle a week. That's just too much. So my recommendation is like 0.25 pounds to 0.5 pounds per week. So that increase in calories per day is only going to be like 100 to 200-ish above your maintenance level. So I would start at 2,100 or 2,200 if you were looking to put on muscle. So that's the second step, your fat loss or your muscle building calories based on your maintenance calories first. And so now that we have like the total number of calories that we want you to hit during your, at the beginning of your fat loss phase or muscle building phase, we need to set your macros. So we have the calories, and now we need to figure out what portion of those calories are coming from which macros. So the first macro that you want to set is protein. And there is kind of a lot of different thoughts and science out there about how much protein you should be having, and I for the longest time was under the impression that like if you want to build muscle or maintain muscle, you need to have 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight every single day. And I did that for a while, and I was eating like 140, 150 grams of protein, and I did not like it at all. It was so hard for me to maintain. I was eating foods I didn't like just because I thought I needed to get that much protein in, and I'm very grateful to have learned a bit into my journey that it is not entirely crucial for you to hit 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. People will definitely argue that this is wrong, but I personally think that like enjoying your diet is a very large component of how you should diet. So my recommendation is 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. So if you think of lean body mass, that is not the same as body weight. That is the amount of muscle that you have, and not the entirety of muscle, fat, water, bone, organs, everything, And obviously it's very hard to figure this out if you don't have if you haven't done like a body composition test, or you haven't gotten your body fat measured or anything like that. It's hard to know exactly how much lean body mass you have, but it's usually, let me see what mine is. Mine is like, if I'm 145 pounds, and I know that my lean body mass is like 110 pounds, then 110 divided by 145 is like 75% of my body weight. So my recommendation then would be to be around there, like 70 to 80% of your body weight is probably your lean body mass, and it's going to be a smaller percentage, like closer to 70 if you're heavier, and it's going to be a larger percentage if you are lower in body weight. Does that make sense? I know it's kind of confusing, but 1 gram per pound of lean body mass is a really good way to go by, because I've just found that people don't enjoy eating protein as much as they enjoy eating other macros, and you don't need to like shove protein down your throat all day long in order to maintain muscle or gain muscle. Like if you are supplying yourself with an adequate amount, so like if you're a female and you are hitting if you're hitting above 100 grams of protein per day, I think that you are good to go. Like, I know that I usually hit right now like around 100, 110, 115 maybe, but I don't hit near 140 or 150, like technically I should. So that would be my recommendation there would be to set your protein first, one based on how much lean body mass you have, and two based on your preferences, your lifestyle preferences, your dietary preferences. Do you enjoy eating protein dense meals? If you do, go ahead and up it a little bit. That's fine. If you don't, then don't up it as much. Like, I'm basically vegetarian and I don't eat chicken and turkey and beef and steak at every single meal, and that's totally okay. I think that if you are really, really looking to like put on muscle, if you're in a muscle building phase, so you have to also think about the fact that muscle building phases, you're trying to build muscle, and in fat loss phases, you're just trying to maintain the muscle that you have because you're eating in a calorie deficit, so you don't have extra energy to spend on building muscle, if that makes sense. So that is what I have found has worked for me and many, many, many people. I'm so glad that this kind of came about and the science about it came about, showing that you don't need to have 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and that 1 gram per pound of lean body mass is totally good to go. There's also some recommendations that it's like 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight, and I think my body weight in kilograms is like 60 something, so that would be like 1 to 1.5 would be like 60 to 120, which again, I fall within that range. So that one's definitely on the lower end. So I know that this all sounds like wishy-washy, like what does it actually mean? And that's because it's so individualized to like what you like to eat and what your goals are and what your like history of dieting is, if that makes sense. So we have maintenance calories, your fat loss calories, set your protein first, then you set your fat second. And the reason that you do that is because the next step after that is to set your carbs. And the carbs are essentially going to be everything that is remaining in terms of what calories you have from your fat loss calories. So when it comes to setting fat, we want to aim for between 25% to 40% of our total calories coming from fat. So if someone is, I just did a little calculation, if someone was dieting on 2,000 calories, 25 to 40% would be like 55 to 80 grams of fat per day. So if you think about what your fat loss calories are, 25 to 40% of that would come from fat. And where do you fall on that spectrum? Whatever you prefer. If you prefer to eat higher fat meals, especially like maybe if you have you're wanting to get more protein in, then maybe setting your fat a little bit higher would be helpful, because there's a lot of foods that are high fat, high protein, like cheeses and fatty meats and things like that, that if you really like those foods, then it's going to be easier for you to get in your protein if you have a higher fat intake. So 25 to 40% of your total calories, it doesn't matter as long as it's not below 25%, because fats are crucial for internal functioning and they help support all of our body's like processes and our hormones and our omega-3s and all these internal processes that need fat to help them. Fat is not bad in any way, so don't think that like if you are on the lower end of the fat spectrum that you'll lose more fat. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't matter. It's all about preference and how you are able to hit all of your macros and all of your calories in total. If you prefer having higher fat meals or lower fat meals, you can figure out any grams within that range that works for you. Then for the last one, we have setting our carbs, which is our remaining calories. So if we go back and we look at what our fat loss calories were, let's say they were 1,800, and if our maintenance calories were 2,000, our fat loss calories were 1,800. Our protein first, let's say if the person is 150 pounds, let's say we're going to set their protein at like 120. Then we would multiply 120 by 4, because there's 4 calories per gram. So we have 120 times 4, which is 480. And we would subtract that from the 1,800 that we have as our total. 1,800 minus 480 is 1,320. So that's how many calories we have remaining for fats and carbs. Then if we want to say that we had between 25 and 40% of our calories coming from fat, let's say we chose 35%. So if we have 35% of 1,800, 0.35 times 1,800 is 630. So then if we subtract that from the 1,320, we have 690 calories remaining, and we're going to divide that by 4 calories per gram, which will give us the number of carbs, 172.5. So carbs are literally just the remaining calories. Obviously, that's going to change your remaining calories after you remove the calories from from protein and from fat is going to change based on what you set your protein and your fat at. But that is kind of how you can do that. So if you do that whole process and you realize like, oh, like 172 carbs, that's not enough. Like I would rather prefer to have a little bit lower fat and a little bit higher carb, or a little bit lower protein. I mean, not going, too far below your 1 gram per pound of lean body mass, then you can totally do that, and those remaining calories from carbs will go up a little bit, and that is how you can set those. And so once you kind of have those ideas and like 3 numbers that calculate out to your total fat loss calories, then those are your initial macros. Those are your starting macros. Those are, what you've been able to calculate based on what you know about, your maintenance calories, your fat loss calories, and then your preferences as far as protein, fats, and carbs go. So then if you start eating those every single day and you are losing weight at 1 pound of body weight per week, and everything's going great, you're combining it with your strength training workouts, everything's going well, then when do you know to change your macros? Like, do you need to? How do you know? Blah, blah, blah. So if everything is going according to plan and you are seeing progress and you are eating the exact same macros every single day, or like relatively, or you're getting, maybe you have some higher protein days throughout the week and then a little bit lower protein on the weekends because you're going out to eat and having less protein. If it's kind of averaging out over the week to be pretty consistent, then you don't need to change anything if you are seeing progress that you like. Obviously, we always want progress to be faster than we actually get it, but if you are seeing consistent progress, there is no need to make any changes. The only time that you do need to make changes is if you hit a plateau, and this can come in a lot of different ways, and you can recognize it in a lot of different ways. So if you are feeling like you are sticking to the plan entirely, you're doing everything that you are supposed to do, your weight is not changing, you are not feeling leaner, you're not feeling more energized, you are not feeling like your clothes are fitting tighter, you're not seeing any changes in your progress photos, that would be an indication that it's time to make a change. And if you're in a fat loss phase, then the first thing that you would want to do is go ahead and lower your macros a little bit. And when I say macros, I really mean lower your calories, but keep your protein and fat kind of at the same level, because I guess fat you can lower a little bit, but again, don't go below 25% of your daily intake because we need fat for our internal body functioning. The main place that you want to pull from is carbs, because carbs are your body's primary energy source. So if you pull like a little bit from there, they're going to have to dip into other energy sources, aka stored fat, to continue, sustaining life, to continue allowing yourself to like run at your normal calorie level every single day. So that would be my recommendation for like when to change and what to change. So my recommendation first would be to pull from carbs. If you really don't want to, pull a little bit from fat, as long as you're staying with above that 25% of your total calories. And this is, so then stick to that again for, 2 weeks, see how your body responds to that. If nothing is still happening, you might have to make another change. And this is why it's really good to have a coach, to have someone to have their eyes on your progress, so that way you don't have to think about it like, shoot, should I be pulling from carbs? Should I be pulling from fat? Is this progress? Am I not making progress? Am I, like, all these things that you don't have to think about as a client of a coach. It's your, like, especially when you have a one-on-one coaching relationship with someone, it's their responsibility. Like, your responsibility is to stick to the plan. It's their responsibility to adjust things when they need to be adjusted. So that's why I've liked working with coaches in the past, because it takes all the guesswork out for me. Like, I know that they will tell me when I need to lower my carbs, if I need to, and I don't have to think about, like, am I doing, I just stick to the plan. So, I hope that this was helpful to explain what macros are, how you come to them, how you know when to change them, how you can set them for yourself in the future. And like I said, like, these are always going to be changing. So as your body grows and you grow more muscle and you lose less fat and you weigh less or you weigh more, all these things, they're all going to change what your daily intake should be. Even like lifestyle changes, like if you're a university student and then you go to a corporate job and you're sitting all day versus wandering around campus, like your energy expenditure is totally different and your maintenance calories are going to change. So it's good to just like be aware of all these things, and that's why I like being able to track my food and just have an idea of what I'm eating and what my maintenance calories are and how much protein I need, blah, blah, blah. And you can see like what macros are going to be most easy for you to stick to and what you're going to want to stick to. So yes, I hope that that was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions about like what I explained, if anything was confusing, doesn't make sense, you have follow-up questions, please just leave a comment down below. You know that I am more than happy to explain how I was able to, you know, figure all this out. And yeah, I think that's all I have. Oh, macro calculators. If you have like looked online at macro calculators, there are a bunch out there, and I remember like every single time I would try a different one, I would get something totally different. So the only one that I like kind of like, most of them I do not like, and I do not recommend them, but the only one that I kind of like is Katie Hearn's calculator. She is like a person in the fitness industry, very credible, very knowledgeable, has been doing this for a very long time and has coached thousands and thousands of people. I really like her calculator because it's not like crazy high on protein and crazy low on everything else, because that's how a lot of calculators are. And that is just at her website, Katie Hearn, KatyHearnFit.com, I believe. I will link it for you if I spelled that wrong or anything. So I think that that is all that I got for you guys. Again, let me know if you have any questions, and I hope that this was helpful.